Okay, so in today's video we're going to take a look at part 2 of the 3-part series, looking at the new laser ammo laser bolt for the AR15 platform. So I'll put a link in the description for part 1, and if you want to check that out, that covers the unboxing and just basically walk around of the laser bolt itself. In today's video, which will be part 2, we'll install the bolt in this rifle here. Okay, so go ahead and obviously get the elements out of the box here, and then we'll install them in this rifle. Okay, so we have the parts out of the package. So we have the laser bolt itself. We also have the trigger activator. There's a number of spacers here, which we'll talk about when we install this into the rifle. And also we have an Allen key here for doing adjustments, and also opening the bolt to replace the battery, and a supplied flat-bladed screwdriver for adjusting some of the settings and modes. Okay, so let's go ahead and obviously make sure this rifle is safe, and obviously remove the bolt. Okay, so we look at the rifle here. We have a chamber flag here, so we're going to remove the chamber flag, and obviously just inspect to make sure that there's no round in the chamber there. So this rifle is clear. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and strip down this rifle, removing the upper and lower, so we can install the actual laser bolt. So as with most ARs, you have the pins here that we can push through. And obviously turning the rifle over, we can retract those pins, which allows us to separate the upper and lower receiver. Okay, so once you have the lower and the upper receiver separated, obviously it's a case of just removing the bolt assembly and the charging handle. So on this rifle, just loosen that off, remove the bolt and remove the charging handle. And we now have obviously a rifle ready to receive the laser ammo laser bolt. Now, one thing to mention initially is here in the UK, when I'm typically out on the range with this rifle, it's usually sort of like pretty rubbish conditions, either raining or misty or damp. So I tend to run the bolt quite wet. And obviously this particular bolt here at the moment obviously is in need of sort of like probably some lubrication. It's been stored for a while. But just to mention, obviously, you know, in your sort of upper receiver here, you might have a lot of lubrication around, which you may want to sort of like just remove the excess to ensure that obviously when you put your laser bolt in there, it's not going to pick up some of that residue of the lubrication. I'm not sure if it matters too much, but obviously just something to sort of note. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at obviously the laser bolt. So let's just compare that with obviously the actual physical bolt. So you can see here, obviously you've got the kind of bolt face on here that obviously sits similar to that, and obviously lengthwise you can see here, you know, they kind of have a comparable. Obviously this would be where your chamber, so obviously it's going to the actual chamber itself. So you can see obviously the difference here. Obviously you've got obviously the gas port here. Now this is a straight pull rifle, so this gas port is redundant on this. So and obviously you've got this kind of differences here, obviously with this cutaway for the handle to be used for the straight pull action. But okay, so that's a sort of comparison with the kind of two. So let's put that to one side for a second. Now when I'm installing obviously the laser bolt, looking at instructions, it gives you some sort of quite detailed information obviously regarding setup, and obviously you can see here how to install the laser bolt directly in your rifle, in the and obviously removing the bolt carrier group, and obviously then install that in there. Now they do show the charging handle in place. Now obviously that will aid in obviously removal of the bolt afterwards. So again, what I normally do is obviously, if you were going to go ahead with this, is you don't have to use the charging handle. If you want to go ahead with the bolt, you can just literally insert the laser bolt, and obviously you can use it without the charging handle, because clearly when you're operating this, there's no need to obviously charge the gun. So essentially it would literally just be redundant, but it does help, I think, when you want to remove it. So I'm going to reinstall the charging handle, and then again, similar to normal bolt, you'd insert the bolt in the correct way, ensuring obviously this upper part here is obviously facing upwards towards the charging handle. So essentially just insert the bolt, you can see that slides in there, and again, charging handle, it will just pushes in, and the charging handle will just sit in behind it. And obviously to remove it, you could either remove the bolt by trying to grip it and pull it back, but with the charging handle in there, you just literally need to pull that, and obviously your laser bolt comes free. So quite useful for sort of like assembly and disassembly. Okay, so let's push that back in, just a little firm push, and obviously set that up. And you can see obviously the laser bolt in there now, sitting kind of snugly in this housing. Obviously it doesn't protrude beyond obviously what you'd expect from the point of view of where the buffer plate would be on a buffer tube. So yeah, quite a good fit. It seems to be really sort of snug in there and not rattly or shaky or anything. So let's go ahead and obviously reassemble the lower receiver. So again, just normal process, just drops in. You can see buffer tube is not affected here, just sits in fine. Pins go in place, and there she goes. So let's go ahead and obviously just swing this round. Okay, so I'll bring it a bit closer. You can see the bolt in there. And again, underneath, I don't know if you can see that within the magazine well. You have access in there to use the laser modes, so you can adjust the laser modes. Obviously, you need a longer screwdriver than one supplied for this mag well, and you also have the ability to be able to adjust with these entry points here for the laser's alignment. So let's go ahead and look at the instructions on that. So with the alignment, you have the ability to be able to adjust obviously the laser's adjustment based on obviously some series of rotations clockwise and anti-clockwise to obviously adjust the laser. Now typically with this rifle I have here, this optic, I've got this 0 to 100 yards for when I'm on the actual range. I don't really want to mess with this because I want that to be sort of like consistent when I'm on the range, so I will adjust the laser to obviously match this. Now this is using a BDC reticule, so it has obviously the 0 on the actual reticule at that point, and then obviously it has markings for bullet drop, so you can obviously adjust your aim for different distances up to I think 500 yards. So I'll probably keep this as is. I won't mess with this when I'm using this for obviously the simulators and adjust the laser to obviously meet this optic, and that's what I kind of recommend. Okay, so let's go ahead and install now the kind of trigger mechanism. So again, on here you have these buffer plates which we spoke about in the previous or we introduced rather in the previous part 1 video, and they do give you a number of different spaces. Now I won't go into obviously adjusting the spaces and so forth in this video, we'll do that in part 3, but it basically means that you can obviously adjust the position or the pull distance between the back of the trigger and obviously the surface plate here. Now additional to that, and something I didn't mention in part 1 was, let's look at the instructions again. You do have the ability to be able to modify the pull weight. Now you can see it here. So they have these springs which basically set the there's a max of 5 springs which will obviously give you the max trigger weight. Now these 5 springs, I haven't seen them in a kit, so I'm assuming they're all within this mechanism here, and you can remove them by literally just pushing the hex key into this port here and obviously pushing those out, and they slide out. You won't be able to see, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but the springs are sat in there, and I can actually see multiple springs. It looks like all of them are in there. So there's none in the kit, they all come pre-supplied and fitted into this module. Now the weight of the trigger on this, the trigger pull activator on this is pretty heavy. I mean, I think it's way over 5 pounds. It feels really, really heavy. So obviously using this, you're going to have to obviously set the springs based on what side pull weight you want, because obviously with the sort of usage on the simulators and stuff, if you're doing multi-shots, you might want a lighter trigger. Out of the box, I thought it was pretty heavy. So I'm not going to adjust it on this one, but we will play around with this on part 3. So I'm just going to go ahead and just install this. So what you do is you basically go ahead and obviously set your springs as you want them to be, and then you fit the spacer that you choose. We're going to just go for this default one, and then obviously install it in the trigger well here. Now in part 1 I did explain that when I first got this and I had a look at this, I was thinking, well, there's no way I could get this back in behind the trigger. It simply just wouldn't happen. It just couldn't fit in there, and I kind of, as everyone else probably does, I just read the instructions, but I didn't really pick up on the fact that there's a breakaway plate here with magnets which basically can be removed, and it just snaps into place. So you can see that sort of just snaps into place. So obviously, that being said, that makes it simple to install. So you just remove that, and then obviously you can essentially, first of all, probably you want to install the actual connector, make it easier, don't put strain on it. So again, this connector, it only fits one way. You need to check the orientation and just literally snaps into place within the actual physical pin connectors there. Now when you're actually removing this, you might want to, again I mentioned this in the previous video, just grip it as tight as possible and pull it directly out towards you, just to ensure you don't put any strain on this cable and damage this cable, because that would obviously make it inoperable. So yeah, something just bear in mind. It's pretty easy to fit. You just need to make sure that you don't rush when you pull it out, or pull on the cable to pull it out, just to pinch it on the as close as possible to the connector. Okay, so the next phase is then just to insert this behind the trigger. So just to mention, you have this curvature here, which obviously matches in the trigger well here. So you just literally drop that in place. The spacer sits behind the trigger, and obviously this would fit on the other side. It snaps in place. I'll just swing that around for you, so you can see there it's kind of nice and snug. And that's essentially it. So obviously you have the point, obviously, you know, the trigger movement here. You can see there's a slight little bit of take up here. If I put it on fire, and there's your actual activator for the laser. And again, this is quite heavy weight, so there's a little bit of slack. I could probably put a better spacer in here, but then when you pull, you can hear those springs and the switch firing, but it's quite a heavy pull. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the installation. You also obviously can switch this on. So we'll just quickly test for function. I have a kind of laser ammo laser target here. So obviously we'll just verify that this is working. So I'm going to switch this on, so you can see a little switch up here. So you literally just have to get your finger in there and just push that over to on. I've already preset this to be electronic mode. So what we're going to do is we're going to, if I just put this at the muzzle end and fire, putting it off safe, sorry. So there you go, you can see activating on that laser, so we know we're operational. Okay, so that's pretty much it for sort of the installation side of things. I mean, what we do in part 3 would be to run this on the simulator and do a few shots and sort of see how it goes. The other thing is I'm going to probably run this with a magazine, so I get the kind of correct sort of feel for the rifle. I mean, I know it's an empty mag and it won't have the same weight, but if you're running this on a sling or something, you just want to have the same analog of shooting on the range as you would on the laser targets. Fitting it with a magazine with some dummy rounds, you can get those like sort of solid metal sort of dummy rounds that sort of simulate a round weight, and you could actually physically just run this in the magazine to get that same sort of like feel. But it's good that the magazine can obviously be inserted. I mean, in the magazine well, there's plenty of space there on the buffer tube, sorry, on the laser bolt, so the magazines can lock in place. And that's pretty much it. So obviously what we'll do in part 3 is we'll set this up, and I'll sight it in and talk about the spring weights. We'll demonstrate removing those and how they're installed, and then obviously take it onto the simulator, run some shots, and get some feedback. Okay guys, well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, kind of like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for now. Bye.